Welcome to the show, everyone. Today's guest is Kelly Resendez. Kelly is a transformational business strategist who empowers professionals to shatter limitations and embrace abundant living. As the president of Menrva, a women's telehealth and technology company, a strategic advisor at GoodLeap, and co-owner of GoBundance, she unlocks exponential growth through innovative mindset strategies and high-level consulting. Kelly is the author of Big Voices and is a thought leader at the intersection of personal growth and strategic thinking, where she proves that professional excellence and personal fulfillment are interconnected and guides individuals and organizations to break through barriers and design intentional paths to success. I'm excited to have Kelly on the show today to share how she helps others create an abundance mindset, reduce self-sabotage, and increase success. And with that, Kelly Resendez, welcome to the show.
Hi.
Hey.
I'm so excited to be here, Eric.
Excited to have you. Super excited to have you. It's taken us a few minutes to get this all lined up, and I've been anticipating, and I can't wait to have you on and have this great conversation.
Me too.
Fantastic. So with that, talked about childhood. What was it like growing up? Where'd you grow up? What was your family like and influences?
Yeah. So I grew up in a small town in Northern California, and my parents were both entrepreneurs and real estate investors. So I always
Oh, wow.
believe I kind of hit
Hit the
the
lottery.
the lottery on really just growing up with abundance
Yeah.
and with parents that really kind of practice that. With that said, I did create a lot of self-suffering for myself. I was very significance driven and constantly, I would say, trying to prove my worth and be perfect. So, a lot of those attributes served me well early on in my career. I got into mortgage. I quickly became a top 1% loan officer in the nation. Building a team and really driving my success from a worldly standpoint, not an internal standpoint. And so, although it looked like I had a lot of success from the outside, I was freaking miserable, Eric. I just was that hard charging, probably in my masculine a lot more than in my feminine. And I had my awakening in 2004. My mom had been diagnosed with dementia a couple years before. I lost my grandmother, and then I had my daughter. And I was guided to really start on this new path of consciousness. And so the awakening wasn't easy. I'm going to tell you that. There's a lot of fear when achievement and productivity and external success and really achievement is driving you to believe that maybe if I let go of my foot being on that gas pedal, that things are going to, take a step back. And actually the opposite happened. I really dug in. The first book that I read was Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, and I got my physical health in check. And then off I went on this now 21-year journey of what I would say is really evolving into, my highest self. And sometimes you look back at yesterday and you're like, oh, I thought I was my highest self. And then bam, we get other opportunity to be able to find even more, more in that. And so through that, it gave me the courage to really leave a very successful career in 2011 and join GoodLeap, which was a very fast growing company that was originally headquartered locally. And over the last 14 years, we've grown it into a multi-billion-dollar company and really just kind of changed the way that financing in the home improvement space is done. And now again, taking that next leap of faith and courage, and the president of Menrva, which is a femtech company where we really are focused on, I would say revolutionizing the way that women's health is done in this nation. And then simultaneously with those things, I would say that I had a lot of challenges that came up in the family, losing my mom. I've got a sister with mental illness, and I lost my niece. but at the same time, I was still able to speak. I speak pretty regularly on abundance and business strategy as well, and write some books. I've got a new one coming out in the next 6 months called The Frequency of Abundance, where I share the pillars that I really believe have allowed me to create not only worldly success, but also that internal success where I feel aligned, I feel alive, I feel like I'm really living in God's purpose for me.
Man, that is a heck of a start to this show right there. Let's go. Tell me a bit about some of the influences when you talk about, because that's an amazing entrepreneurial journey and success,
Yeah.
and there's so many avenues to go there. When you talk about your parents and hitting the lottery with your parents and just kind of the abundant living that you had as a kiddo, what was life like in Northern California when you're getting started and your family? Were you like a outdoorsy kid, an academic kid? Were you a sport,
Yeah.
like theater?
All of the above,
What did
to
you
be
do?
honest with
Yeah.
you. My parents worked hard and they played hard. So we had boats and wave runners and motor homes and houseboats and second homes. And,
Oh
and so I
man.
really did live a blessed life. When I say I hit the lottery, I would say that I don't have a lot of abundance blocks that other people do from living in poverty or having
Hmm.
parents in scarcity around money. I also hit the lottery in areas that, I've had to recognize they were much different. My parents were not very present.
Hmm.
They were definitely in the achievement world themselves and never really stopped or slowed down.
Yeah.
And so I knew I didn't want to live that way either. So, but definitely had a very balanced childhood of
Yeah.
being, in play, but then also doing well in school and in sports, which of course many of us that have gotten to high levels in our career have that foundation.
Hmm. So, did you see yourself being? You said your parents were real estate entrepreneurs. Um, Describe that a little bit more for me. What type of real
Yeah.
estate and what were they offering?
Yeah, absolutely. So my mom purchased her first property when she was 19. And so I purchased my first property when I was 19. My 22-year-old daughter purchased her first property at
Wow.
19. And so I didn't have fear around investing
Hmm.
or doing things differently than other people, but my mom over my childhood, I got to work in the business. When people are like, "When did you get into real estate?" And I'm like, "I was 4." I was
Yeah.
helping with the keys for the mini storages or going with my mom to do clean out in an apartment complex. So she owned commercial property, multifamily, single family, 1 to 4, and mini storages. So I kind of had a well-rounded
Wow.
view
Yep.
of what that looked like. And then my dad was in the home improvement space, being a heating and air conditioning contractor. And I was already, again, working in that when I was 4 or 5, helping, file and do other things. So I had a lot of influence around, how to wow your customers, how to
Hmm.
leverage what you have accumulated to be able to build even more.
So you really were brought up in the real estate world, so that you learned all
Yeah,
aspects from. Did your mom, when
absolutely.
she invested in her properties, did she also manage them? Or
Yeah.
yep. So
Yep.
you
She
learned
did
the
it
management
all.
side. So you
Yeah.
saw it all from acquisition to
Yeah.
management, all those
Yeah.
things.
And let
So
me
did,
tell you, I was holding my breath for about 7 years after I took over a lot of the things because of the IRS. Like they definitely took advantage of the way that they did things as well.
say more about that when you talk about the IRS. Is that when your mom was having
Yeah,
issues
I
or?
would just say that back then, a business owner or real estate investor didn't realize like how important it was to follow the way that the IRS wants you to report income and
Oh,
do other things. So let's just say there were a lot of cash payers in the
sure.
Goodman household, and so it definitely was something that again, I held my breath for about 7 years going, oh my gosh, we don't have a Schedule E.
Yeah.
Like, how do we own this many properties without a Schedule E
Yeah.
anywhere?
Yes. Okay. Got it. So were you, when, and coming up through that, did you say, okay, this is my future. I'm going to be in real estate too? Or is it
I
more like,
didn't,
I really don't want to do it because my parents are doing it.
yeah, to be honest with you, I didn't even think about it as being a choice. I
Mm,
thought about like, I didn't have to think I'm going to own real estate as part of my portfolio because it was just an expectation
mm,
that this was a really solid way to build wealth for yourself.
yep. Okay.
So, and I've continued down that path, buying my first property when I was 19. And now my portfolio is widely diversified between storage, multifamily, Airbnb. But
Mm,
I also, the other direction that I went where my parents didn't is in the startup and business world as well. So I've got a pretty large portfolio of businesses that I play with too.
okay. Did you go to college, or did you just stay
I did. I
Okay.
went to college. I went to Sac State. I went to UMass. And but what I would tell you is that, in today's day and age, like I'm not a believer that college is the way that you
Yeah.
have to create success. My 20-year-old son, who is very ambitious and already works for GoodLeap and started when he was in high school, like I did in the banking world when I was in high school. I don't believe that anything beyond amazing connections came from that experience.
Yeah.
That's really where I'm like, oh my gosh, I met some of my favorite people when I was there, but definitely don't see it as any part of the success that I've created in my life.
Okay. So you went to college at the time, did you go off to say, I'm going to go learn X, Y, or Z, or was it more just, hey, this is what people do and you have
It's
the
just what people did.
people did. Okay. So
Yep.
when you come out of college, what was the first professional step you took there?
So I had never left working the bank, like working at the bank.
Yep.
So I started in high school through an ROP program and then stayed there actually for 16 years and was working in a bank branch. But I quickly transitioned into mortgage and realized, somebody, honestly, people are like, how'd you decide on mortgage? And I'm like, somebody showed me their paycheck and I was like, I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
Like that was because I was so motivated by worldly success and
Yep.
money.
Yep.
Probably back at the time, that's how I got in. But I didn't realize that parts of my personality were going to allow me to create just a massive, what I would say, just team and business over the next few years because of it.
Okay. So once you get into mortgage and you start building, are you doing what type of mortgage business?
Just residential, one to
Okay.
four unit financing.
Okay.
And when I got in, the one thing that I did, and I would highly suggest this to anyone else, is to look at what everyone else is doing, and try to find a different way.
Mm,
I'm a big believer in blue ocean strategies
mm,
where you just kind of do things different than other people. And at that time, when I got in 1998, everyone was focused on refinancing. And the real estate agents that were out there were having to wait for their lender. They were stuck at their desk. And I was like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not a be stuck at my desk kind of person. And I really studied the market and I realized that real estate agents were hungry for knowledge. And so I started, I would say in personal growth and development around 1999. And I was able to learn from people like Zig Ziglar, Brian Buffini, others in how to support the real estate community. So I started speaking really young. And that was really how I differentiated myself, was that I became the influencer in my market that would help you be able to accelerate the growth of your company. And in turn, it accelerated the growth of my company.
So you're speaking in front of real estate agents and talking to them
Yep.
about personal development and growth, or how to grow a real estate
Yep.
business, or what were your topics?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly it, Eric.
And so then they're going, okay, we want to work with Kelly.
Yeah.
And so your mortgage business grows because you've got this
Yeah.
platform now. And so
Yeah.
while everyone else is doing refis, you're doing new construction, or you're doing new purchases, or
Yep.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's not that we didn't help our refinance clients. I just didn't put any focus on it. I added team members that would really help those clients do the things that they needed to do.
Yeah.
And one thing I would say about this that I didn't realize at the time, but now I do, is, that this cycle of learning, applying, and then teaching,
Mm,
which this is a big John Maxwell thing, which
yep.
he put it into words, and it hadn't clicked for me yet until John and I were really going through this. And it clicked for me because that's what I was doing. I was holding myself accountable to the things that I was telling them to do. by sharing and teaching this information. Because if the teacher is telling you what you should be doing, but then they're not doing it, it really makes a big difference. And
Sure.
so that's kind of, I just became obsessed for the first probably 5 or 6 years as I was building this business with how to become, just a really solid business strategist, how to be more successful, like what was the mindset that it was going to take. And so when I got into the consciousness space and then blended the two from a deeper level, I think the first 5 years was all up here. Like, what do I need to know? How do I learn it, apply it, teach it? And then
Yeah.
the next season of my life was really how do I embody it?
Love that. So it's, yeah, that learn one, try one, teach one
Yeah,
mindset, right? And when we teach, it absolutely takes you to another level from a
yeah,
learning standpoint, right? When you're
absolutely.
held accountable to teach something, you will learn it at a different level of depth than if you're just applying it.
For sure. And I probably didn't realize then, being I would say a language specialist, that's one big thing that I really focus a lot is the power of language in your life
Mm,
that we're listening. Like we think we're teaching, but we're
mhm,
really
for
learning
sure.
every time we do it. And so, I probably do 1 to 2 abundance events per week. And so I am in a place of abundance because I've been listening to myself for so long. And
Right.
then sometimes I get notes from a lot of the things that I do and I get them back and I'm like, whoa, like I really said that. Like I really
Where'd
shared
that
that.
come
And it
from?
is, yeah. And
Yeah.
it's because, I'm just channeling information that's so ingrained in me
Yeah.
without having to think as much as the majority of people out there.
Right. So you stay in the mortgage business right through the 2000s, and recollection is the mortgage industry was just going bonkers in the early 2000s.
Yeah,
Everybody with a pulse had 2 and 3 homes and rental homes. If you could fog a mirror, you could get a mortgage, right? And then, of course,
100%.
we have The Big Short, the movie The Big Short, the book The Big Short, which is a great book, better than the movie, which chronicled the whole meltdown and the flip over of what almost became the whole U.S. financial system. But were you in the driver's seat? Were you in one of the chairs in that moment,
Oh,
experiencing
yeah.
that chaos?
Yeah, absolutely. So here's what I would say is that when you are a seeker, you get what you need before the next big lesson is coming.
Mm.
So I found Deepak Chopra's Spiritual Laws of Success in early 2007.
Oh,
And the one rule that really resonated with me the most because I had already had massive compassion and empathy. My emotional intelligence was something that I really focused on, but I still had a lot of disappointment and a lot of expectation. And so the rule that really came to me was the law of detachment. And in this law of detachment is really this idea that in uncertainty, the universe dances. And whether you call it the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, is that when you are open to the uncertainty of life and you really have this broader, I would say, perspective, rather than like a finite view, you're infinite in what is going to happen to you, and everything is a teacher. I spent an entire year studying the law of detachment. Like, and I mean, I love Deepak, like absolutely just one of my favorite teachers. I actually got to speak with him this last year in Davos, Switzerland at the World Economic Forum, which was just, one of those icings on the cake. I just
crazy.
need Eckhart Tolle now. He's the only one that I have not really come face to face with. So anybody listening, if you happen to know him, I need a little help there. And so embodying this law of detachment when the market shifted and we could see it early. So I was actually at Washington Mutual at the time.
Mm.
Definitely the Big Short had a lot to do with that
Wow.
and was in the top echelon. So had the proximity to the people that were there that knew what was going on. Fortunately, kind of got the tip off a little bit earlier than the closure or whatnot. So
Mm.
I sold all my stock, not a stock tip off. I want to be clear. I don't want,
You're right.
federal agents at my door tomorrow.
SEC,
But I
chill
got
out. Everybody
I
chill
got
out
the
at the
tip.
SEC.
Yeah, just the tip off that like, hey, this is maybe sinking a little bit. And so I made the decision to go to Wells Fargo. And Wells Fargo avoided a lot of the challenges that were going on in the market, they'd stayed very A paper. I only did A paper, so I didn't do, an extreme number of option arms for the wrong people,
Hmm.
increasing their income. I didn't do any of the things that other people were doing to make money. And so I just shoulder shrugged it out and was like, let's go. Like, where's opportunity? And so when you are an amazing, like that next level business thinker, you're looking ahead at all times. You never get attached to this is working today, so I don't need to continuously innovate and prepare for different markets. And so I went deep in the REO and short sale space and started teaching agents how to navigate that market. I knew more about short sales and REOs than most of them. And so,
Talk about just from a, you don't have to go educational level, but just high level for the audience that may not know what REO is and
yeah.
short sell.
So real estate owned means the bank has actually taken the house back and now they're selling it to a buyer. And so there were still buyers in the market in 08 through 2010 or 11, but a lot of them were bank owned properties. A short sale is when you own the home, but you have gotten the bank to agree to take less than the amount that's owed to them. And so there are a lot of rules that go along with both of those categories. And so we just became experts in it, and we became an expert in government financing. And there are a lot of ins and outs about those things. And so then again, we started teaching agents, how do you take advantage of the market? But more importantly, we aligned ourselves with every top REO agent and short sale agent in the market because we wanted our pre-approval letter to be the one that they wanted.
Mm.
Because they knew I'm not going to put one out when I haven't done all of these steps. And so, for anyone listening, not in mortgage or real estate, you might say, how does this apply? Recipes and rituals and standard operating procedures create wow experiences. And we wanted to wow everyone that we really worked with. And that's what we ended up doing. So, we took a step back for a minute, and then all of a sudden it was back on top again.
So you recognized where the market was going and you created a process and procedure that said, this is how we're going to interface with these
Yeah.
banks to show
And
that
I
we
hadn't
are.
done I hadn't done a government loan since 1999. We didn't need to. We had
Right.
conventional financing options to 97 to 100%, and so we
Right.
didn't need government loans. We needed them then. We needed those loans because our customers had credit flaws or had come out of
Yep.
their own short sale or things like that.
Right. Okay. So you start to crush that market. So now you're doing REO and government loans and things like this. Where does your business then evolve to at that point?
Yeah. Yeah. So at that point, I really felt like I needed to start teaching more. So I had created a lot of success in the real estate market, and I was watching a lot of my peers suffer because they couldn't do the same thing. So I really started to teach more on how to develop a loan officer's business and came up with some systems and strategies and started mentoring and really focusing on more. And I knew like running my own business in mortgage was not where I wanted to be. So, I came up with my own job description. And this is a strategy that I teach other people to do all the time. I'm like, why not come up with your own job description and really be clear what you want to be doing on a daily basis so that you attract in the right opportunity? And I was in pretty late stage conversations with Wells Fargo at this point. This is early 2011. And they, like any large ship, were taking a really long time. And I got a call from Hayes Barnard. And Hayes is one of the founders of GoodLeap. And, we knew each other through the business. We knew each other. Our kids went to school. And what Hayes said to me, and for anybody that's out there recruiting, especially C-suite executives, he said, like, hey, I just want to meet and see if there's any way I can support your goals and vice versa. And nobody had ever said that to me. It
Yeah.
was always what they wanted. And did I fit into that
Mm.
role? And I've never done a resume. I'm going to be honest with you. I've never had to do a resume. My career has progressed divinely in my life. And so when we met and we really sat down and I shared, like, hey, well, this is the job description of what I really want to be doing. And, Hayes in Hayes fashion was like, I want to change the world. I know we're a local company today. Guthrie Ranker, a very large company, had just purchased a portion of the company. And so I joined his C-suite at that point and basically went in. I let go of my entire business. I brought people with me to continue to service my database and my realtor portfolio, but I took over, supporting sales and business development for that company. And we were a mortgage and solar sales division at that point. We weren't on anyone's radar.
This
And
is
over
separate from GoodLeap, or this is
This
your
is
business?
GoodLeap.
Oh, this is
Yeah, this
GoodLeap.
is
Okay.
GoodLeap. Yeah, we were known as Paramount Equity Mortgage back there. We've had another name change along the way. But, Hayes's perspective, because he went through the challenging market of having to lay people off in 07, 08 as well. And so his definitely superpower is anticipation and diversification. So he had already started solar. He had already become a mortgage bank, so there wasn't the dependency on the broker world, things that you really needed to be successful. And so coming into that organization when it was very small, and now we've grown it, I think we had 80 something employees when I started, and we've got close to 1,500 today. We're a
Wow.
$12.5 billion company, and we've added, home improvement financing many years ago, about 7 years ago. And so we help contractors and solar installers and sales units,
Yep.
provide point of sale financing through a technology platform that allows the customer to make decisions really quickly. And so from a learning lesson perspective, for anybody listening, like, you're the creator of your own reality.
Yep.
I went in with one job description, and let me tell you, I ended up running recruiting and training and quality assurance and really supporting our chief revenue officer on growth strategy. I didn't start there, and I learned in the trenches what it really means to scale a business from a thoughtful perspective. And we've had amazing mentors and partners along the way to be able to help us do that. And so I'm forever indebted to, the three founders, Matt, Jason, and Hayes, because they taught me so much about focus on one problem, create a product or service to solve it, really find a way to reach those customers in multiple ways so that you don't ever have the dependency on, one channel or another, and always be thinking a few steps ahead. And so in doing that, I was able to semi-retire from GoodLeap in April of this year. I'm a strategic advisor still and do some things with one of our founders. But in taking this new role of president for Menrva and wanting to go out and just redesign the way that women's healthcare is managed in the United States, I get to bring all of those same strategies for scaling into this business.
So that's a big leap from GoodLeap to women's health, right?
Yeah,
How did that
yeah,
come about, and what kind
absolutely.
of drove the desire to make that move?
Yeah. So in 2004, like actually December 2003, is when I made a decision with my mom being diagnosed at only 57 with dementia that I was going to learn everything about health. So when I first got into health, I changed a lot of my diet, my exercise, but then I kind of got into what we didn't even have a name for back then, was the biohacking world. How do you improve longevity? And so I've been obsessed with that ever since. And so I've had a lot of other, I would say just really, really close experiences with that. And then having a sister with mental illness and a niece with mental illness, just studying neuroscience and studying the way that our gut microbiome works and affects depression, anxiety, disease, et cetera, that really kind of brought me to this place. So prior to Menrva, already working on another company called Precision Health. We've got a new gut microbiome kit and lab that is going to change the way that gut microbiome testing is done in the US as well. And so it was a perfect match because so many people don't realize that the metabolism of hormones and the way that our gut works has a massive effect on every system that we have. And so that's really what we're focused on at Menrva. And then having gone through menopause myself, going through that experience, had I not already been in functional medicine, I would have been dependent on the Western way, which was we're not going to hormone test you. We're not going to do these things until it's been a year. Well, so do you want me to suffer for an
Mm,
entire year with
mhm,
heart palpitations, night sweats, fuzzy
mhm,
brain, etc.? And for the men listening, this is just as important for you as it
100%.
is for us.
Mhm.
We need to restore the power and the I would say the energy levels in women in order to allow us to be better parents, leaders, employees. The loss in productivity over perimenopause and menopause is in the billions.
Mm,
So if you're a company owner and you're not thinking about this, like, you need to be. Because when do most women reach the C-suite? When do they start their own companies? It's in their 40s and 50s. And
yeah.
that number is being diminished by not taking care of our physical body. Only about 7% of women are taking care of their physical body from a hormonal standpoint. And, I'm sure, and you may not have seen this, but the FDA chief came out recently and said one of the greatest failures that we've made is stating that hormone replacement is dangerous.
It's an absolute travesty, man. The FDA is a joke. It should be shut down. I mean, that's maybe a bit bold, but the reality is the food pyramid, the recommendations
Oh,
we get around what
yeah,
good. I mean, I grew up in a time when people ate, eggs and bacon, and then it became known that eggs were killing us, so we had to stop eating eggs. Now we've
yeah,
come full circle where eggs are considered, and then it was, oh, you can eat some eggs, but only the egg white. Don't touch the yellow; it'll kill you. It's full of cholesterol. Now it's known that the yellow is extremely important
yeah,
and eggs are a superfood. So eat all the eggs you want. And it's like, wait,
yeah,
if I was following the guidance of what the FDA was saying all along, they've done a complete 360, right? They went from eggs
yeah,
good to eggs are going to kill you, now to eggs great again. I mean, and
yeah,
I've worked in the medical field earlier in my career, and it's a travesty, and specifically in the men's hormone space. And there was a
yeah.
time when there's plenty of doctors out there today that would say that giving a man exogenous testosterone is a bad idea. It's going to
Yeah.
promote prostate cancer, and it's an absolute falsehood, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
and it's a protector. Like,
yes,
why do we have higher instances of heart disease in men? If your testosterone level is low, you are not going to be protected against that. If
that's
your
right.
cortisol levels are high. So, I mean, you hit it on the head. The one thing that we have to get back to is self-trust.
Yes.
We've lost self-trust and confidence in our own body to eradicate disease. And
Mm,
part of that is that we haven't been taking care of our own bodies. When we're stressed, when we're eating processed foods, when we're, just in proximity to people that are toxic, or we really just aren't sleeping. These are all things that will basically increase disease. And we hear so much on genetics, and I just got off a call a little bit ago where I'm like, hey, we need to recognize that there's a correlation, but there's not causation. One of the studies that Dr. Eddie Romo, one of my partners in precision health, has released and studied is the association between gut microbiome and Alzheimer's versus the genetic marker and Alzheimer's. And leaky gut is way higher. And so we need to start educating ourselves and not trust the Western medicine model, the FDA, big pharma, the
Mm,
food industry, et cetera, and get back to, what do I know? What do I know? How do I listen to my body better and be able to fuel it with the things that make me feel fantastic? Then I
yeah.
mean, water, sunlight,
Yeah.
uh, healthy organic foods are the best thing that you can do for your body.
Yeah, 100%. And you have to look at. So I was having this conversation earlier this week with a friend whose 5-year-old daughter just got diagnosed with celiac disease, which is devastating, right? Autoimmune
Yeah.
disease. If you're diagnosed at 50, it's like, well, I'm going to have to grapple with this for the next 25, 30 years. But as a 5-year-old, life is changed, right? This poor kid's going to deal with this now for the next 70 years, right?
Maybe,
Maybe. And
maybe.
and it brought the question up of what in the world is going on. That, I mean, when I went to school, there were no such thing that we knew of peanut allergies. I mean, I work out a lot outdoors, and we do some things around in like parking lots and boot camp stuff, and a lot of it's in school parking lots. on the doors of the schools, it's like, this is a peanut free zone. This is a latex free zone. I mean, it's like, well, everybody is so, I
Yeah.
mean, where did this come from and what's driving it? If it's not food, I think food is a big one, or the toxicity of food, or the processed nature of food, or the amount of sugar that we've got in our bodies, right? Which is all, again, goes
Yeah.
back to food. And how, again, if you look at, if you look at a cross section of the U.S. population in the 50s compared to now, the level of obesity, the level of, processed foods, sugar in our diet is exponentially higher. And now you, again, whether it's correlation or causation, and the level of people with these autoimmune diseases
Yeah.
and these real health challenges, hormonal challenges, mental health challenges. My mother died of Alzheimer's disease after she had it for 16 years. It was devastating. Um, uh, but you just have to ask yourself, like, what is going on, and then how do we deal with it, right? And back quickly, and I'll let you speak. What, for medical practitioners, and again back to the medical side, for medical practitioners to tell a woman that she should not have testosterone is a
Yeah.
joke, right? I mean, women have testosterone in their body. They have far less than men, but they have it, and it drives many of the same symptoms. Low testosterone in a woman would drive many of the same symptoms as low testosterone in men. And yet, for women to not be given testosterone is ridiculous, right? And yet you've got a whole generation of medical practitioners that were taught that's not something to give a woman, right? And so it's
They
a
weren't taught a lot. I mean, let's be honest. Like they're in there, they're really trying to get base level health. It's up to us to take that to the next level of longevity, biohacking, et cetera. So, I'm blessed to be in proximity to some of the greatest researchers out there in some
mm,
of these spaces. If you check out Wizard Sciences, I don't know if you know Ian Mitchell, but
mm,
Ian is really on the other side of disease. It's how do you eradicate it to begin with? And so when you think about why would somebody have an allergy, it's their intestinal tract, their gut
mm,
microbiome is not versed yet on how to be able to break down that food, whether it's dairy, peanuts, anything like that. And so there are options. Like for anybody listening, there are options. And if somebody's even been diagnosed with something, there are options.
mm,
But your best place is not to go to your primary care physician to be able to go through these things. The best option is to take personal responsibility for finding ways to heal your emotional body and to heal your physical body. And when you own that and you can kind of go down this path of like, there are so many different things that you can do to be able to improve your health. Like you feel this power, right? And that's
mm,
what really happened with me was that I had a parent with dementia.
mm.
I had a sister with mental illness and then a father with some, cardiovascular challenges. And so when I take all of these lessons, like, why me? I've always
Mm.
asked God, like, why do you want me to be able to step in with my business partner, Dr. Betty Murray, and really change the way that we look at it? And it's like, I was given these gifts to be upfront and personal with what happens when you don't take personal responsibility for your own health. And I didn't know when my mom first got diagnosed that there are protocols that can help you heal your brain. I didn't know about Dr. Amen. I didn't know about some of the other leading researchers in this space that there are some solutions out there. And so now I know, like, man, if I've got a parasite, if my gut microbiome is not healthy, it's not going to take care of me. Now, I have not had a cold, flu,
Mm.
COVID shot, nothing, not an antibiotic, not anything since 2009. I used to have regular sinus infections. I used to have allergies. I used to have, some of these things that a lot of people are just used to getting, the
Yeah,
flu, and some of it's language. I never get sick. I say it regularly
yeah.
and I make sure that my body is in peak state. And anyone listening can do the same because if you're thinking about growing your business, right?
Mm.
How are you going to have the energy to do it if you don't feel
Yeah.
radiant? and energized. Like I wake up, I work out, I do my morning ritual. For anyone that doesn't and hasn't committed to a morning ritual, that's one of the top things that I recommend to you. It's one of my disciplines in my pillars. And
What is
prepare
that?
yourself.
What does your morning ritual look
My
like?
morning ritual. So I'm very faith-based. So I read a devotional, I read the Bible before I do anything else.
Yeah.
And then I have what basically in GoBundance Women, I co-own GoBundance Women, which is a mastermind community. We have what's called a Master Abundance Playbook, and it's based off of my morning ritual. And so I look at how I want to feel. I look at my goals. I look at my I am statements so that I can really remind my brain how I want to feel that day. And then I journal. I meditate several days a week as well, and then I work out 3 times a week. And so, plus cardio. But what it's allowed me to do, like most of us don't know, we have more power to control how we feel. When you look at your brain, just like you would that original iPhone,
Mm,
you gotta upgrade it. Like you
mm,
would never just ignore a new iPhone coming out. I mean, could you imagine? You're like, no, I'm just gonna stick with the original one that I had.
right.
It's not as fast, doesn't work as well. And so it's just hardware. That's all it is. It's just hardware. And so when we reinstall new programming into our brain, we have the power to change how we feel. And the one thing that I would say is that most humans are dependent on the external world to dictate how they feel. And we want to take that power back
Mm.
in relationships, in business, in our bank account, in contribution, in adventure. Like, I want to be able to say, like, no, this is how we're going to feel. Now go out there and create the reality that's going to support it. So I'm not void of things that are, suffering. Like, I'm not. There are things in my life that, challenges for anybody listening. It's not like I've been like, oh, just get to show up every day and I'm this privileged kid that grew up in this reality. Like going through some of the extreme situations that I did with my sister's family and losing my niece after trying, for many years to be her savior, getting into some codependency and other things. Like I'm not removed from the suffering that we have. The difference is the way in which I've experienced it has come from a place of growth. It's come from a place of learning that all of these things have brought me to this moment so I can transcend it, share it, teach it, and hopefully help rewire, American families.
Talk a little bit about that in terms of coming off the bottom or coming off a difficult time. How do you when you mention grappling with some difficult things family
Yeah.
wise, for those that are listening, maybe having a dark season or something that they're trying to get through. What are the how did you pull yourself through those times?
Yeah. So I'm just going to lean into one experience, right? I wake up, I read my devotional that was like, there are going to be things outside of your control that I need you to get closer to me. Use this as a way to get closer to me. And an hour later, I get a phone call that my sister had tried to kill her own daughter.
Mm,
I had a 5 hour drive. In the 5 hour drive that I went there, I was able to put myself into a position of service and of opportunity so that when I got there and I had my niece was in the hospital at this point and I needed to track in and make decisions, and rather than have to think about what I needed to do next, I was guided to do what was next, which was calling a friend who is a surgeon in Granite Bay, California. He's at UC Davis, and he had a plane there within hours to help me. And those are the types of things I think a lot of us, we're afraid to feel into what's next. We think we have to think our way to whatever it is, but like having that trust that there is something we can't see that's
mm,
going to guide us to what needs to happen next is one of the most valuable things that you can do in that. And that was just the start, right? Because then it was the trial. And, my sister's in a mental facility now. And I actually just lost my niece. It'll be a year on August 27th. And So she made it, she made it 7 years through some of her self-suffering that was created through, a long period of time. It wasn't just that day. But what I would say is that you have to know everything is always working out okay for you.
Mm.
When you embody that belief and that you're the creator of your own reality and that these challenges are opportunities to grow and impact, like that perspective is what's gotten me through everything. Now, that doesn't mean that I can't grieve and experience sadness or anger simultaneously. I just don't go to the lower level emotions like shame or guilt or doubt or fear. I try to stay, I experience fear when my life is in danger. That's appropriate fear. We're not meant to experience fear of, are they gonna, is the guy gonna text me back? Am I gonna
Mhm.
get the job? Am I gonna be able to pay my bills? That's inappropriate fear. Like we've got to get away from those lower level emotions, but most of us need to reprogram ourselves. It's okay if they show up. It's just my brain. Now I have an opportunity to teach it how to replace it with what might be true. Because on the other side of fear or doubt or guilt or whatnot, a lot of times is actually a deeper emotion that we don't want to express. It's sadness, it's anger. Those are totally appropriate emotions,
Mhm.
totally appropriate. And when you learn that you can experience joy and suffering simultaneously, it will get you to the next level.
Yeah, that's good stuff. The so how when someone is in that moment when they're feeling fear or they're feeling like for one of those things that
Yeah.
you said is like, okay, it's come up inappropriately, like I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to take care of my children or I'm not
Yeah.
going to be able to pay my bills or whatever it is. What are the steps? What do you recommend people do
Yeah.
when they step into that?
Yeah. So first and foremost, I use strategy until I get to deeper levels of healing. And I use strategy for my first 10 years in personal growth and development. Strategy is what got me through. I was able to change my state, like Tony Robbins says. I was able to apply some strategy to be able to get me through something that was going on. The last portion, the last 11 years, I've been more focused on healing and getting to the deeper part of what's going so that I don't have to use as much strategy because strategy takes energy and I want to be energized. Like I want to be in this place where I don't have to think or personal growth myself through something. And so my strategy that I use is just called a trigger management plan. And basically what or strategy or whatever it is. So what I do, it's just in 4 steps. And I will tell you, I had not found the work by Byron Katie when I created this strategy. And so now if I'm teaching this strategy, a lot of times I layer in some of her goodness because it's so profound. But step one is to really identify the emotion that you're feeling. We use a lot of words like overwhelmed, right? To describe how
Mhm.
we're feeling. That's not an emotion. So, how do we break that down? What am I really experiencing in this moment? Like, how do maybe I have multiple emotions occurring at once, and that's why I'm feeling this way. And most of the time, they're rooted in scarcity, right? There's something that we believe is scarce or whatnot. So, step one is always to really get to the depth of your emotion. Is it anger? Is it fear? Is it doubt? Is it guilt? Is it shame? Any of these other lower level things that are going on. Now, we get emotionally triggered all the time from a positive standpoint, but we don't need to do as much work there because we don't ruminate on
Mhm.
those things. Our brain ruminates, your old programming will ruminate on what's not satisfactory and it will forget what's satisfactory. And we got to flip flop that,
Yeah.
right? So, step one is do this. Step two is to identify what preference you have that this trigger is in opposition to. And when you do your preference, you're going to want to really like start surface level and then keep going deeper because a lot of times they're deeper preferences that we actually have. So I'm going to use, my son hates it, by the way, but I'm going to use him as an example. So I used to get triggered when he wouldn't do his homework and he would play Fortnite, right?
Yep.
And so it was like, I'd be angry, I'd be scared, fearful for his career, like other things when he's like 13, 14 years old,
Sure.
right? And so when I originally looked at my preference, I was like, I would prefer that he do his homework before he does these other
Plays
things. Like
video
I
games.
would prefer he wouldn't give me a hard time, when this is a discipline that he has to master. The deeper I went on that preference, the more I realized I really wanted a 4.4 student that got into Harvard,
Hmm.
that I never had to help with homework, that I never had to tell what to do. My parents never asked me to do my homework.
Yeah.
They never told me I had to go to college. They never did any of these other things. Like I wanted a self-motivated kid
Yeah.
that had, all this. Like, and when I looked at that, it was like, man, that's like really like, that's like, how could he
It's
measure
heavy.
up to this?
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And so then step three is to hallucinate to the farthest degree if your preference isn't met. And so we want to disrupt the thought pattern. We want to make it funny, right? In this situation, I literally imagined my son at age 40 with his shirt off playing Fortnite, asking me to get him milk. And I just keep picturing that. Cause like when you try to take your kid and picture them as a grown adult being like a total lump of,
Yeah.
whatever, like it just is, you just make it funny. You
Right.
got to break up the rumination in some way, shape, or form. And then the last step is really to ask yourself a question because questions in the middle of rumination are really powerful.
Mm.
Can I avoid this or can I grow through it? And so, can I avoid this? Well, I could give up custody,
Yeah.
right? I could give up custody of this kid and
Yeah.
be like, oh, nope, 1 for 2.
Right.
My daughter didn't need to be told anything. I'm 1 for 2, right?
Yeah.
Or how do I use this as a growth opportunity for myself? And so, using it as a growth opportunity for myself, I had choice, right? I could take away the cord. I could, take away the game.
Mm.
I could learn how to be more patient and accepting of where he was. I could learn how to be more trusting that, he's just not meant for the traditional, which most boys aren't,
Hmm.
the way that they teach us.
Yeah.
He, had some learning challenges. And lo and behold, he's 20 and crushing it. Like he's worked at GoodLeap in our business development team, very, very much motivated,
Yeah.
ambitious because he's doing what he loves. And so some of the layered techniques that I would say that I've taken from Byron Katie after this is when you have an emotional trigger and you're looking at a situation to ask yourself, is this true? Some of the
Mm.
things that we get emotionally triggered by are brain's desire to complete a story. So if I saw you, Eric, and you were struggling because you had a bad day, I might take that as you don't like me and you don't value me.
Yep.
And so asking yourself that question, is it true? And then the
Yeah.
second question is, do you really know it's true?
Yeah.
Because we make up stories for incomplete situations all the time. And that's part of what our brain does in our frontal lobe is it tries to be able to use that to be able to make materials. It's totally off.
Yeah.
Like most of the things that we feared, other things. So if you're struggling financially, picture yourself in a car homeless. Like really go the distance
Yeah.
because you've got to disrupt this thought pattern. And so this strategy has been super helpful for me in my life. I have a thought management strategy as well that really has allowed me to see my thoughts as separate from who I am, which is a big thing that Eckhart Tolle has
Mm.
taught me in my life. And when I do that, now I have an opportunity to say, you know what? I'm actually projecting on this other person
Mm.
something that I might be feeling.
Yeah. I love that. So when you feel that trigger happen, you go through those steps, follow that
Yeah.
strategy, break it
Yeah.
down, go to the extreme, make it a joke, make it ridiculous, and so that
Yep.
you can unwire it. And then,
Yeah.
yeah.
And where you can start is, we don't want to react, we want to respond. And so if we can slow down and breathe, So we need to calm our nervous system. Another great strategy is basically what I call a 5-5-7-5 is breathe in for 5, hold for 5, exhale for 7, and then hold for 5. When we exhale longer than we breathe in, we calm our nervous system.
Right.
Now it doesn't feel like we're in danger. And so you can start with, hey, maybe I do the trigger management plan when I get home after having a situation at work. Maybe I do it tomorrow, a week later, a year later, whatever it might be. But you will get to the point in utilizing this that you can do it really quickly.
Yeah.
Like, because I just call them zingers, right? Like, I had a zinger a week ago and I was like, oh, like I was internalizing something. The person just didn't have a lot of time. It didn't mean they
Yeah.
didn't value me or appreciate what I brought to the table. They were in scarcity over time, and yet it was a zinger for me. And so when I go back to that whole strategy and asking myself, is it true that they don't value me and I'm feeling sad or I'm feeling rejected or whatnot? The answer is no, it's not true because
Yeah.
I have to take things at face value. If you have a challenge with me, you and I have to be close enough to be able to say, like, Eric, if you have a challenge with me, I need you to be very, very upfront with me. I
Yeah.
don't want to tell stories about your energy. And that's what we do all the time.
Yep. Yeah, and that's hard, right? Because most people, they don't want that conflict, so they just shut down, right? They don't
They
want to
do.
just like, I'll just push it down. And it's I'm reading Mel Robbins' book right now, Let Them,
Yeah.
which is a great book, and talks about how so much of our emotional response is really rooted in childhood, and the fact
Yeah.
that even as a 40-year-old or a 50-year-old, whatever, you're really kind of a 7-year-old in a 50-year-old's body. And because we never really learn how to deal with different things, so we just
Yeah.
we either sulk, we shut down, we avoid it, so we just leave the area, what have you, and like all these young emotions because we were never taught how to deal with it otherwise. And
Yeah.
so that results in all this conflict because now you're
Yeah.
interpreting my behavior a certain way, which is not right, right? Your brain's writing that story, like you said, and it's
Yeah.
not a correct story. And I'm reading that and I'm writing my own story, which is also not correct. And it's communication such a challenge, right? For
Yeah.
adults. Yep.
Yeah. And some of these things, this is what I want to make clear, seem simple. Rewiring your brain is very challenging.
Yeah.
So, do I appreciate Mel's work? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Yeah.
Let them 100%. They seem really simple. They're not easy.
Not easy.
And they weren't easy for her either. There's a lot more to the story in getting here. So if you can simultaneously heal the parts of yourself that didn't learn some of these things when you were young, because most of us didn't have parents that sat in the fire with us and
Right.
allowed us to, feel our emotion. It was like, here's a hot dog,
Right.
go eat a popsicle.
Yeah.
Don't get angry. No, get angry.
Yeah.
There is atrocious things happening in this world. And if we don't stand up to them, like they're going to continue.
Yeah.
Like feel sad, feel grief, feel the emotion while trusting everything's going to work out okay for you.
Yeah.
So, what I don't like is the number of people that internally beat themselves up
Mm.
because they have wisdom without application. So one of the pillars that, kind of in my book that's coming out, I talk about starting with a vision for how you want to feel,
Mm.
creating an emotional narrative, which is your vision. You might not be there yet, but just having that vision of how you want to feel in your life, adopting disciplines that are going to get you there. But the last piece of it is being in the right environment. And so, what does that mean? It's our internal environment and our external environment. So, if I didn't sleep, if my hormones are off, my thyroid's off, my gut microbiome, any of these other things are off, I'm not going to energetically show up in the way that I would if I took care of my physical body. The second thing is surrounding yourself with like minded people
Mm.
that are going to elevate you, putting yourself outside of your comfort zone where you're not the most successful person in the room.
Mm.
That's one of the big things that we do in GoBundance is we've created a container to surround you with amazing people that are also on the same journey that you are. And that's really where you feel that level of intentionality and accountability that you need so that you can stop beating yourself up. for having the wisdom without application. Because that's where I'm seeing a lot of, when you look at the quality of happiness, joy, success,
Mm.
etc., with the amount of information, like now I could go to Chat GPT and therapy myself out of any situation. There are more books on personal growth and development that there have ever been. There are more events than there have ever been. There's
Right.
more.
Yeah.
And yet, you know what? Nothing's changed
Not
in
better.
emotional and mental stability.
Yeah.
Nothing. It's actually gotten a little worse.
Yes.
And so why? I mean, technology, and social media might play into it, but I think what's played into it is beating ourselves up. I
Yeah.
know better. I know better. I shouldn't have reacted that way. I know better. Like, take that off your shoulders and just know I'm on a journey. And part of it is that I embody the wisdom that I learn. I might take this technique that somebody else has taught me, but now I need to create the vision and the goals to apply it in my own life. And then I need a mechanism in which to celebrate and calibrate. So I'm going to be proud of, like, I'm going to tell you, like, oh my gosh, the way that I showed up yesterday when this happened was like, holy crap. Like, I did a really good job navigating that conversation and then being able to really celebrate it. On the other side, it's, oh, I had a really big opportunity. I got a text last week and I literally took 1 second to pick up the phone and call and say, this text literally just emotionally triggered me. And I'm going to tell you why. If I would have waited,
Mm.
I would have flattened it. But instead, I addressed it in a nanosecond. I didn't react, but I reacted.
Mm.
Right. And so I see that as an opportunity for me to calibrate. How do I set better time frames for myself? I have so
Yeah.
many people on so many different teams that I'm leading that and we're so different. Like how they handle something is going to be different than how I do. And I have to be more accepting of that.
Yeah. I love that. And the faith component that you bring, I think, is so important. Um, to There's so much power in surrender and
Yeah.
recognizing that we don't control everything, and understanding that there's a that God is out there, and has great intention for us, right? And so I love
Yeah.
that reframing that you said around when you're
Yeah.
dealing with something, that the it's such a powerful question. I've talked about it before, of like, how do I take this impossible situation? How do I take it and use it, glorify you with it,
Oh,
humanity with it? How do I do it? Because I don't know. You know,
yeah.
I'm off the deep end here. I'm struggling with whatever. How do I take it? Because I know it's all meant for good. I can't see it. I don't understand it. I don't have to understand it, but just help me
Yeah.
find the how. Right.
Yeah. Well, and when we look at a lot of self-suffering that's created, there are two things that a lot of high achievers want. They want power and they want control.
Mm.
When you hand it over to God,
Yep.
when you truly surrender and you let go, it will change your life.
Yeah.
I have no control here. I could get in my car 5 minutes from now with all the work that I've done and get hit by a car.
Yep.
I could, have my relationship end. I could have something like all of these things really like we seek it on a level that creates a lot of suffering. And so when you fully surrender, and whether you believe in God, Jesus, the universe, nature,
Yep.
astronomy, I don't care what you believe in. When you believe something bigger than we can see is orchestrating abundance,
Mm.
magic happens.
Yeah.
Like I'm at a point now where I don't have to send emails or text probably about 40% of the time because I can vision it, I can feel it, and that person will reach out to me.
Mm. That's pretty wild.
It's amazing. Like talk about being in flow, but
Yeah.
that's what this frequency of abundance is about believing. Like, why not adjust your beliefs
Mm.
to meet how you want to feel rather than having your beliefs dictate how you feel? Like, there's such a big difference.
Mm.
And, I live an extremely values driven life. And, my top driving value in my life is love. And so when I lead with love, I let go of all the other things.
Right.
Like, I don't need the control. I don't need the power. If you don't like or love me, like,
Yep. It's
Get out
okay.
there and do your own thing.
Right.
So when we're divinely guided and we know there's an interconnectedness between all of us,
Yep.
like we have the ability to communicate on levels that you and I can't see.
Yes. Yeah. Agreed. I love that. Kelly, I want to be respectful of your time. I know we're running up against the limit here. What are you excited about? What were you taking
Ah,
Menrva, and what's on your plate?
yeah. So Menrva, revolutionizing women's healthcare by bringing you better opportunity to take care of your hormones, your gut, your thyroid. So we've got an amazing telemedicine platform. You can just go over to gethormonesnow.com and check out that platform. We'll have an app that's following pretty closely. And then I would tell you that just, I love connecting with people that are interested in making big world changes as well, whether as an investor, a strategist, et cetera, or helping them scale their company through my mentorship or mastermind communities as well. So just any business owner, just pop over to kellyresendez.com. You'll find all of my resources right there for you in one place where you can find out information on GoBundance Women. You can go to GoBundanceWomen.com as well. But definitely just would look forward to conversations with world changers that really want to make a difference.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
A great conversation. I love everything you got to share. We
Amazing.
could talk for days. I think you've got so
Yes.
much knowledge and wisdom. I so appreciate you sharing even just a little of it with the audience and with me. And it's been so much fun today. I appreciate you so much.
So much fun, Eric. Thank you for bringing this out into the world and doing what you do.
Absolutely. To our audience, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to listen to the show. Always appreciate that you do that. If you would share the program with a friend, write a nice review, give us a rating, all those things help us reach a broader audience. Until next time, friends, I'm Eric Sardina. You've been listening to the Return to Authenticity podcast, and bye for now.